morning, all of us here on this Friday. Yes, it is Future Friday here on the channel RPG with DBJ. Of course, as you can see with the picture and the thumbnails and the whole 9 yards, that we take a subject. Of course, this time is consequences, aftermath, and lasting impacts. We talk about it all week, and one of my favorite subjects of all time is modern day and far future. I am an armchair futurist. I love transhumanist and post-human ideals, but we don't limit ourselves to that, because here in Future Friday, future meaning essentially the growing technologies in the world, from say the Renaissance to the Victorian era, all the way into the far future of intergalactic space travel and beyond. That is what we talk about here today. And mind you, when it comes to science fiction in the future, and of course post-apocalypse fits into that quite easily. We could talk about this probably for weeks, but we've only got an hour, so we're going to try to condense it down quite a bit in our tabletop the tabletop RPG content. All right, so when it comes to consequences and aftermath, and pretty much hinted at this all week, that as we start to get into the future, there's this technology allows us, if once you start at least eliminating or replacing magic and superpowers or psionics, things like that, you start replacing those abilities with technology, and technology starts falling into the hands of everyone. And technology allows us to have a much larger impact over a wider area of time and distance in the RPG community. And of course, there's always the give the players a lit match, and they're going to, absolutely positively drop it into something high explosive. But there's many other things that we can play with in our future games when it comes to consequences for the PCs. Now, because of my self my love of futurist things, I fall on the side of technology isn't evil in and of itself. A lot of intellectual properties will paint certain types of technologies in the evil light, that hey, do this thing and these bad things will happen to you. And I don't necessarily fall into that category at all. I am one which is, here is a brand new technology, or here's a ubiquitous technology, a technology that's spread amongst everyone, and then how do we use it? Much like in our current culture, we have social media, which technically I'm using social media right now. What impact does it have on society? And everyone will agree that it's, both good and bad. It depends on the user. And the social media is evil. Wait a minute. I'm right here. Hold on. Now, many people would say that it's not only just how you use it, but the impact you have over the widest area. Much like today, in which we talk about viral videos, or someone posting something on Twitter, or someone digging up some comment or photograph of something someone did 15 years ago and then posting it online. And yeah, memes are one of the things that have huge consequences today, which is very strange, right? Because memes come from memetics, and memetic study is the idea of information traveling like a virus, and that some people are immune to that virus, memes, and others are very allergic to it. They catch it quickly, and then it spreads amongst the population. And much like there's a game called Telephone. It has other names, but a game called Telephone is, you line up, dozens, hundreds of people in one line. you have a simple statement and you whisper it into the ear of the first person, and then as each person then whispers it into the ear next to them, and you find out how it shifts and changes. And Infinite Roleplay, hey, what's going on there, man? Social media evolves into Wayland Yutani. So the idea is that the best memes, the best mimetic ideas are the ones that do not shift, but they easily transmit. And yeah, Skynet and everything. Skynet is one of the technology is evil kind of ideas. But I'm thinking of, let's try to put this into, if we start to think of this a little more holistically, like put this into the hands of the player characters. A lot of times, like I said, if you give the player characters a red button and tell them that these are, you're going to launch nukes, they're going to press the red button and launch the nukes. But before they even get there, I think there's a lot of other consequences that the players can get into, some little problems and trouble and things of that nature they can get into that could have a lasting effect. For example, taking the meme social media idea, if the player characters are, you take your Shadowrun, you take your, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it, anything other than, say, post-apocalypse, where technology has fallen into itself and regressed or something, removing that, maybe the player characters have this, their actions have a lasting effect in the social consciousness as opposed to a physical attack or ability. For example, let's say players are members of a mercenary group called the Black Sabers. Come on, let's have some fun with this. So they're members of a Black Saber group, and they're breaking into corporations. I hear you, Robo. uh, let's say they're mercenaries, and they've been on 3, 4, 5 missions against the various corporations, and someone recognizes, say, a tattoo or a label or a badge or a comment because of a video or a photograph or something that was captured errantly during the PC's missions. Well, other people who are members of, let's say it was an old military group known as the Black Sabers, much like in a movie or television show where someone has a tattoo from an elite military squad and they recognize it, or they're innocent people who have heard about these legendary groups and they have a connection to it. One or more of the PCs may find, when they are in trouble, one of their connections might be to this group, even though they've never met those people. Now, in Eclipse phase, there is a statistic that is like a networking statistic, and much like social media today, you can arrive at a method of trust and resources and communication amongst others who are of your like mind within that social media group without necessarily knowing that individual one-on-one. An example would be, and I'm not exactly sure of the title of this website, but there's a website called, I want to say it's, the first thing that popped in my mind is 5 for 5, and that's not what it is. It's a website, and like for $5, you can go on and request something, and someone else in that group will produce for $5 what it is you're thinking you want. So you can say, hey, I want a character sheet or a piece of art, or help with, it could be anything, help with fixing my washer machine, or whatever the case may be. And someone out there, hey, I need 200 words written about this thing, and someone else for $5 will do it. And much like reaching out to social media, you could, the same thing. Is it Fiverr? That's it. Thank you very much, Infinite. Yes, it's Fiverr. And mind you, you don't know these people, and these people don't know you, but your access and inclusion into that social group also means that that social group may involve you. And so, talking about the nice consequences, for example, the PCs are able to, they travel somewhere and there's an asteroid belt, and the PCs navigate their way through the asteroid belt, and one of the PCs says, hey, I'm going to upload the coordinates that I have to navigate through this asteroid belt or binary star system or nebula or whatever uncharted region of space, and upload it. And then when they upload that information to whatever their contacts, their networking is, as opposed to having a connection with one individual, you could spread that out into a social group. And so whatever group the PCs uploaded later on, when they need help, maybe other members of that social group were like, oh, those are the people that uploaded those coordinates for us to navigate through this place to escape the evil empire or whatever it is. So in return, they need, someone needs documents to get into a space hab. Sure, three people will get together and they're like, yeah, we'll make up ID, get you codes to get inside. We'll give you beaming codes for your starship so you can get into this habitat. Click, 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 upload, and then now the PCs now have their connections to do that. And that's one way. I think that's a very slick way of having player characters have giving them boons, rewarding them, giving them connections without necessarily those connections being one individual. And you could even get have even more detail where the PCs leave. Let's say the PCs receive a message after contacting their social group, and that social group could be like a League of Assassins. It could be some kind of a hacktivist organization. It could be a hypercore entrepreneurial, guerrilla corporate group. Like each group could be different. And when the PCs get ready, they come into the hab, they maybe see a message and they said, listen, at 1700 hours habitat time, go to the fourth port to the left and you'll see a purple recycle bin, and behind it will be your credentials or something. And someone else in that social media group may have zero idea who you are, what you look like. All they know is they were supposed to pick up a package, drop it off behind the purple recycle bin, and keep on moving. And because they're loyal to that social group, they go, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I don't know why I'm doing it, and I don't know what's in the package, but by 1700 hours, I'll be there. And all of a sudden, they see some random person with a package go, stick this thing behind the purple recycle bin, and then keep on moving. And then when the PCs get there, they open up the package and they have their fake IDs. Leave them alone, Robo Mega is like, sheeple. Which, well, maybe that's the. We'll get into those consequences too. Tesla also, what did you say? The group SETI at home and folding at home, etc. I believe in regards to the Fiverr web social group website or something. But yeah, so socially, I think that's the very beginnings of a really great way to reward players for the consequences of their actions. Much like the idea of the rebels or the rebellion against the empire or first order, or whatever the case may be, when they go to distant planets, those cells would help them out and maybe grant them equipment, um, you know, uh, Fast and Furious. In the Fast and Furious movies, it's the I'm driving a or what's the other movie? I was supposed to say Driving Miss Daisy. Wow. No, no, no. It just keep Baby Driver. Wow, my brain just shuts down every time I get online. I'll go live. But anyway, um, Fast and Furious and Baby Driver did this, speeding away from cops, driving around, helicopters overhead, bad guys chasing after you with high performance automatic weapons and you have none, and then all of a sudden someone makes a call, and then a half ton of automobiles that look exactly like your automobile come out of the woodworks. You drive into, you're the lone car that drives into the garage, and then out of the garage comes 18 other cars. We've seen this done with umbrellas, right? A bunch of people in black garb with umbrellas all show up like a mob at one particular location, and then on cue everyone looks down at their watch, and every single person who shows up with their black coats and black umbrellas, and they all open them up together. So now the drones ahead and the spies and the snipers above don't recognize who you are. I would absolutely love for, yep. Robo Magon brings up, and Guy Fawkes masks, people that show up in the anonymous masks. Or Anonymous has appropriated the V for Vendetta Guy Fawkes mask. The one with the huge grin and the very thin handlebar mustache attached to it. Yeah, and why not let PCs do that? And as a matter of fact, if you really want to get a little meta with gaming statistics, maybe, just maybe, a player character, that's how you describe a player character's ability to hide in plain sight, that you reshape the narrative that the player character doesn't have like chameleon or invisibility. What they did was they set this situation up that when they ran out into the empty streets, they had already set up that there would be a flash mob that came together that looks exactly like them, and they show up in their anonymous masks and such. I know that stretches the credibility for some people, but I like the idea of using like a Blades in the Dark game mechanic where you make a skill roll, and that skill roll is part of a flashback to an event that you set up previously, to then have the consequence of having that happen in present day, and then you get the benefit of having it present day, even though no one really talked about having that event happen yet. Yeah, Tesla Ranger, the Thomas Crown affair at the end with everyone in bowler hats. Yep. Now that's the good part of consequences, all right? So, especially when it comes to contacts and the media and that kind of thing, having social, not ignoring social media, but embracing it in your own game, that the PCs actually just have a connection to a specific social group as opposed to a specific individual, which you can also do that as well. Robo says, I think that's called retcon. No, I'm going to I'm going to sarcastically argue with you there, Robo. Not necessarily. I would consider a retcon that you're changing the past that actually changes the future information you have, and I would say that's more of a flashback than a retcon, in the sense that with a flashback you're getting more information, but you haven't changed the information you have. So, for example, the PCs are chasing after a blue car, and the blue car turns the corner. No, okay. PCs are in a blue car, police chase after PCs. PCs turn the corner, cops turn the corner as well. They see a blue car, and they keep going after the blue car. Nothing in yeah, Robo, like, that's good because that statement was sarcastic to begin with. Yeah. Of course, I get it. But you know me, I either take the silliness and turn it, like, get a little serious with it, or vice versa, right? So cops chase blue car turns corner, they lose sight of blue car, cops see blue car, they keep chasing it, right? But with a flashback, blue car turns the corner, a separate individual other blue car that's a decoy continues down the same path. Police chase after decoy blue car, and real blue car drives away because it was covered over or peeled or went into a garage, or went under an underpass and was switched over, right? And that's where you have the the flashback to what really happened, but the information presented to the viewer or reader or what have you has not changed. You're just getting more context to it. And that game mechanic is used in Leverage and Blades in the Dark. And it's actually easy to import to other games, but it's just wrapping your head around it. So for example, players must go into a space hab, an office building, what have you, and they cannot carry a weapon. And one of the player characters says, I want to have a weapon. I'm going to find a hidden weapon. Right? Now mind you, this is the first, they've been in the building for 20 minutes and no one has talked about setting this up previously. So how the game mechanic in Blades of the Dark works, the whoever's running the game says, okay, you want to have a firearm inside the building that you did not yourself bring with you. Yes, this is what I want to do. I want to get a firearm. Okay. So then the game master, whoever, sets up either one or a series of die rolls, skill checks, basically, like skill challenge. And now you go flash back to a period of time where the PC is like, yeah, I'm going to bribe or convince, or a friend of mine is going to be dressed up as a waiter, go in, take a firearm in with them because they'll have the credentials to go inside, and no one's going to question them because of the important individuals because they've already been vetted, and they're going to hide, the firearm in a potted plant. Okay, you make the skill rolls, you see if it works or not. If it succeeds, you flash to present day, right? And it only takes a couple of rolls. You don't divert for 20 minutes. It's like a 5-minute thing. Like, oh, I want to exactly how I said it, right? One of my connections is going to hide has hidden as one of the wait staff for this catered event, and they're going to bring my firearms in. And you go, okay, all right. So make the roll. You come up with the difficulty. If they succeed, the firearm is there, right? If they fail, much like Blades in the Dark, they suffer stress. You actually make things worse for yourself. And so making things worse could be that individual was arrested, and now the guards are on high alert because they're looking for someone else. It could be that the person that was going to do it has just now not only didn't do it, but wants to extort more money from you. Maybe that individual goes ahead and says they're going to do it, but now they've told someone else about it, sold that information to a higher bidder. And so that's how that mechanic works. And for consequences, that works really well. Again, hard to wrap your head around. But let's go into some of these high-tech things. There's something that made me, just because I'm out delivering mail, I'm in my own head, it made me think about this. In space, when important people die, right, and they have a funeral, they always dump their bodies out into space, mummified, wrapped in a coffin or whatever, and then they have a funeral, and we have a big important scene where, they're put into into the dock and stuff. In space, no one can hear you die. Oh, isn't there a movie like that? Oh, that was the byline. In space, no one can hear you scream. That was for the Alien movie. But here's my problem scientifically with that. Every time you dump something into space for any reason, it becomes a projectile, right? Now, we often assume that the spacecraft or habitat isn't moving, and if you dump their body into space, they're not moving at all. But that's not true. If you're moving at 18,000 miles an hour and you dump something out at your relative speed, it's going to seem like it's just floating there, but it's actually a pretty powerful projectile. Even the Earth itself is a fast-moving projectile hurtling through space at enormous speeds. Like, if you could somehow take a rock and literally keep it from moving and the Earth spins around the sun, it's actually going to impact that rock. That's how that rock falls into our atmosphere. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, everything is moving in space. So into the sun and it's moving the earth with it. Yep. So every time you dump a body, you're actually dumping a coffin that is a kinetic kill weapon. Now, sure, gravity and radiation and it may impact other particles and things like that. And it's possible even you could dump a person's body and um I hear you, Scott. Yeah, you dump a body and that body could fall into a sun or go into the next, in the next 10,000 years, it goes into, another galaxy or something. But how effed up would that be? Like an intergalactic space race of people are just like rolling their eyes like, oh, those darn humans. How many dead bodies did they dump into space? Don't they know they're not supposed to do that? or for 100 years we've been dumping coffins of heroes into space because we think it's a cool thing till we stop doing it, and then we realize we start an intergalactic war with another race because, yeah, we've just been dumping kinetic kill bodies of our dead into their atmospheres and other places, and they're like, they're starting war with us. They're sending their own dead after us. They don't even care about their own people. Yeah. Yeah, Star Trek 2 addressed the problem by firing Spock into a planet instead of just off into space. Yeah, now mind you, I'm being facetious because it's kind of a non-issue, right? Like it's a television show or a movie or a book or a graphic novel or whatever, and that's what they do. But it just made me think about those consequences. Like, wait a minute, you just put someone into like a metal coffin. That's a kinetic kill weapon. Anyway, um, Joseph Keenan always has some poignant things to talk about consequences in the far future. Much like, oh, I don't, yep. Robo's like, it's like the Vikings in their flaming boat coffins. Yeah, see, even there, at least they light them on fire and send them off. Because if you just put a dead body in a boat and let it drift off, someone's going to be like, what happened there? Why are these boats with dead people always showing up downriver? That's weird. you know? Um, but now, mind you, I'm sure you send them off into the ocean, they're going to capsize and sink and all that kind of business. But again, kind of weird, right? Like if you the image of it is great and it has a lot of drama. You add some music into it. You have a sun going down in the horizon, and you get a little lens flare on the camera and someone crying. Yep, you got to have some bagpipes. You know, great. Okay, now an hour later, when everyone's gone, someone's going to be sitting there like, Uncle Joe just went downriver. I wonder if I can get my money out of his pocket. I forgot to get, you know. Anyway, um, getting back to some other consequences, things like, oh, I don't know, having gunfights inside of sealed habitats, starships, dome cities, O'Neill cylinders, hollowed out asteroids. Like that's not necessarily a good thing. Now, the larger, more planetary sized things they are, sure, they could probably yeah, you fool, take the wedding ring, hurry up. Someone's running down river like, wait, can we do this over again? Take backs. Oh man, that would be so mad. That'd be awful. Even today, to have a funeral, someone dug a pit, someone says some nice words, they go out there, they lower the coffin down in the thing, and someone's like raises their hand like, could we do this over again? Can we rewind what you just said? I left something in there. I think I dropped my cell phone in there, and I gotta. Yeah. Could you call my cell phone? I think I left it in the coffin. Oh shit. Yeah. Okay. So, but there's other consequences of things that minor things when it comes to especially sealed habitats. I brought up the fact that it might be a capital offense to mess with the life support systems of any sealed environment because dumping poison gases and acids or affecting the gravity in a sealed habitat can affect everyone. Um, just bringing, just slipping into a habitat and not going through some sort of, say, um, like you could be carrying a disease, a parasite, a virus, or something on you. Decontamination. Thank you very much, Robo. You. I know you saw the farts coming out of my brain. Yeah, decontamination. Now, mind you, you can hand wave this in a more of a, if you're more cinematic and space opera and stuff, whatever, just ignore this. But if you want more of a harder edge to your science fiction, decontamination is very important. And it's not because, remember, astronauts decontaminate themselves not just because of something they might pick up on their space travels, but because they're bringing something they have to an environment that never had their contaminant in it. So as humanity spreads through space, even our own solar system, let's say you have Earth is completely surrounded by habitats, a couple thousand of them. You've got yourself a dozen or more habs circling Saturn, and people have moved to Jupiter's moons, and we're moving out to the Oort cloud and all these places. Well, once you start doing all of that, those places will become insular, and we all carry bacteria, parasites, diseases, viruses, things like that on our skin, inside of our lungs, and all that kind of business. And we could be carrying around something quite dangerous to other people. So you like JK mentioned wrote down, he's like, yeah, you have the sniffles today, and your sniffles could kill a population of 10,000 on a habitat because you decide to circumvent decontamination. And many times I've even brought that up inside of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Cleric has cured disease. Okay, does cured disease kill the disease, or does it just cure you, but you still carry it and on your skin or something? And so a disease could very much spread throughout classic Dungeons and Dragons, even with clerics that have cured disease, because all they're doing is killing the symptoms off and curing the individual. They're not slaying, they're not killing off the disease. And there's now the opposite part of that is they could kill the disease in one individual. It doesn't mean they can't catch it again, which is another problem when it comes to contagions and stuff. Someone's like, oh, I don't have the disease, I'm going to take off my sealed suit. And you're like, face plant, like, that doesn't make any sense. Of course you don't have the disease. That's why you keep the darn sealed suit on. uh Oh, Robo's like, now I have an urge to roll a plague doctor cleric. Yeah, why not? It's like, sure, I cured you. Yeah, right. You a plague doctor cleric with the plague mask, and able to breathe on people, and maybe a spell like sanctuary or charm person or hold person, um, or command or something like that, or actually just variations on diseases and such. That would be sweet. That'd be kind of cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Um, and of course, anything necrotic kills, and anything radiant would heal. So maybe there's like this back and forth with the disease helping to heal people. Or maybe your healing looks disgusting, like pus growing on people's skin to keep them from bleeding out or something. Sorry, I like I kind of squirreled on that one, but I kind of like it. I like it. Now, other consequences deal with things like, when it comes to, and this is kind of my third pillarisms coming out, but affecting gravity, reentry, um, the speeds that starships travel, their orbits, radiation leaks, disrupting uh, energy engines, ion, fusion, fission, nuclear. um, black hole engines, whatever, you know, lithium crystals, whatever the case you're using, He3 used to harness into engines or whatever. Those, not just engines, but those power plants are also have problems. I love. Yeah, Robo says it's too bad 5e did away with the contagion spell. They kind of did. Well, 5e kind of did away with long-term effect abilities, but whatever. Me, I'm trying to bring the consequences back. Yeah, one man consequence. So, but there is this the idea that you could disrupt something. This kind of goes hand in hand with sabotage. That not just having not just having a fight on a habitat, but have that like a space elevator and have the space elevator fall back into the atmosphere and the PCs are on the space elevator, and a hacker has disrupted the triple safety you know safety arrestor cables and engines and magnetic locks and things that keep the space elevator from falling back into the atmosphere or something. And um, and those kind of things are very much like environments you can play with and have things disrupted because of the player character's actions. For example, player character says, "Hey, I've got grenades on my belt. I'm going to roll them down the hallway of the starship." And everyone, including the people on their side, are like, "Oh, please don't do that." And of course, explosive decompression. Yes, we know explosive decompression doesn't work the way we're thinking. For example, the International Space Station itself now is leaking air as we speak, but it's not how it works in the movies. But whatever. Yeah, you could play with that. Yeah, Robo says like blindness and deafness used to be brutal. Yeah, those things used to last like minutes, if not hours. And when you're playing a role-playing game that's measured in seconds, it's pretty bad. When Dungeons and Dragons had combat rounds that were 1 minute long, that was far more narrative. So if something lasted, yep, a lot of blindness, deafness, and a lot of those abilities was like feeble mind and oh, Otto's irresistible dance. I remember was one version, and there were some others that had either super long durations up to being permanent. And yeah, it's like there are things worse than death, which it brings up. I don't know how to do this in as a theme for a week, but some people feel that if there is no threat of death in your role-playing game, that the stakes aren't high enough, and I disagree with that. There are actually a lot of role-playing games where death is not an issue. I'm talking about you, Eclipse Phase, at this moment, or looking at you, Eclipse Phase. But there are plenty of games where death isn't the point of the role-playing game. There are other things that have far more lasting consequences. As a matter of fact, by the creator John Harper himself for Blades in the Dark, it's actually quite difficult to die in Blades in the Dark, but you can put yourself into a position where you have built up so much heat and stress that you can't get out of it. So I would say that a lot of consequences for player actions, being blind, deaf, paralyzed, losing a limb, having your reputation sullied, having being hunted by the most powerful forces in the universe, etc., can be far more debilitating than just having your character die. When someone can just, you can just, I've got another character. Let me roll one up real quick. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. Robo's like feeble mind lasted until someone cast heal or wish or something similar. Yep, I remember that, and some of those were just save or die. That came from the era of the save or die. You either saved and ignored it, or you just got hit with it, and you might as well just ball your character up. And pretty nasty when role play your character from first to 16th level, and then they just miss one saving throw and they kick the bucket. But pretty brutal, or became completely useless. Let's put it that way. But some of the consequences of the environments, whether they are planetary environments, poisonous atmospheres, high gravity, low gravity, and deciding to run and gun and ignoring the fact that maybe your firearms might set off a cascading effect of radiation or an explosion. Um, Pumping too much oxygen into a hab is just as bad as not having oxygen at all. So, because oxygen is quite flammable, so that's a thing as well. Also, the building up of like carbon dioxide and other nitrogen and other things where you disrupt the balance in the air can also be quite powerful as well. Oh yeah, Ro was like, "Well, that's how life works. Hope you were nice to your party members, so they'll actually want to get you healed." Yeah, that used to be the thing. Stuffing, you'd always stuff your party members into that portable hole because you had to carry their useless rear ends around with you till you get to the resurrection store. 2-for-1 sales. But anyway, um, other consequences as well as not just some of them are political consequences. Okay, so Star Trek, of course, embraces this completely with the Prime Directive and encountering alien races and how you deal with them, how you deal with those alien races, and in terms of politically. Do they know you're a spacefaring race? And if they know you're a spacefaring race, do you let them know that you have weapons on board? What kind of culture do they have when they communicate with you? How do you communicate with them? And various games deal with this in different ways. Some are just intergalactic societies where they all speak, interlac, the language of everyone. Others are take more of a harder line where every time you meet another alien race, you are out in the unknown regions of space, the uncharted portions of the galactic spiral, and each interaction is um, a scientific investigation. And of course, there's horror involved in it as well. If you want to go down the horror path, and much like the idiots in the Aliens franchise, and going like, "Oh, it's a face hugger. I wonder what it is," and looking over a seed that opens up, and they get the male and female genitalia attaching to their face, um, while the hands wrap around their head and the tail wraps around their throat. The PCs could be their own problem when it comes to wanting to, lick their finger and taste the alien sludge, and what a great way to start a very brutal uh, alien infestation onto a starcraft or spaceship that your players are on. Mind you, if the game wasn't a horror game to begin with, it's a great session zero or a thing to say, hey guys, I know you guys really want to do something else. Everyone make 5 additional player characters. We're going to start killing them off one by one. Yeah, you got that right, Robo. Like, what? Lick the alien sludge? You're too dumb to live. Yep. Yeah, genre savvy or not. Yeah, you ever know? You've noticed that in those movies, right? It's like they're astronauts traveling millions, tens of millions. You're traveling light years away from Earth. You've never seen a monster movie. It's like, come on, come on. And like you said, it's like alien sludge. Hey, let's expose it to everyone. You know, just it makes no sense at all. It makes no sense. It's like, ooh, and of course you have that one person. It's so beautiful. Look at it under the microscope. Here, I'm going to take off my sealed hab, take off my gloves, and look at it close up because that's so much better. Whatever. But listen, you got to get the stuff started, and why not do that with like a good grab bag full of NPCs and have them one by one just get killed off, because that's what you need in a horror flick, right? You, whatever horror genre you have, you in order to set up the stakes of what this horror is and how to deal with it, you're going to need examples of what it can do. Um, does it is it a chest burster? Is it a hypnotist? Is it a shape changer? Is it a drag bodies into shadows and then string them up by their intestines in the rafters kind of creature? Like what is it? And so you're going to need a lot of NPCs to just a NPCs that we hate. You have to womanizers, arrogant ones who only care about the bottom line and making money for the corporation. You're going to need an NPC that's just a plain old idiot and causes too many problems. You're going to have the awkward um, the awkward rapey kind of NPC that's always hanging around in the background and says the most inappropriate things and has that I'm undressing you with your eyes to all the crew members kind of person as well. Just because when they die, you don't want to feel anything for them. Because in that genre, no one ever has a funeral for those people. You only have the funerals for the main characters because they're likable. Everybody else can go. They could get flushed out the airlock for all we care. So, well, I hear you, Robo. Because Robo says that's a trope I hate in horror. We should care about the people dying. Well, I'm going to slightly argue with you historically, in the sense that the trope in horror actually was that we didn't really like any of the people in the horror movies because we were rooting for the bad guys. Remember, teenagers go into woods. Teenage jock plus popular girl hates on and makes fun of nerdy kid kind of thing. Okay, and then there's the drug addled kid. There's the bully. There's the there's the cheater. There's the rich arrogant kid. So all of them died in those genres in the horror. So I hear you, because it was a trope, right? You set up a bunch of people we don't like, and then you send a killer that we're like, yay! The killer gets to stab and slash and hack at those people. And it hasn't been until the last 15 years or so that the people dying in these movies we actually liked and we wanted them to live, and then they started getting killed off and we were like, ooh, the impact, ooh. So I agree with you, but historically they were cautionary tales, right? Don't be one of those kids or you're going to get hacked up in the woods kind of thing, right? All right, Sophie Soph, this is my kitty who is, you can't see her, but I'm going to have to put you down there, kitty. I know. Yeah, I love you too. Anyway, well, okay. I, I'll agree with you. I secede on that one. Yeah, that's slasher horror, not horror horror. Correct. Slasher horror, well, yeah. Slasher horror, we didn't care about them. Psychological, like, building tension horror, we want them to survive. So I agree with you. I think I had apples and I'm mixing it with your oranges. But science fiction really, strangely enough, sci-fi elements really lend themselves to the horror genre completely. And so as a consequence, you could add in horror elements into your science fiction if you wanted to get a little bit, get a little hardcore, increase the stakes quite a bit. I think that'd be a great way to reinforce the dangers in the world. Also, when player characters are, how do I say this? I've often said that a lot of you get your players that are like sociopaths or psychopaths, where they're just like, I know this is a game and I know those are NPCs, so I don't mind killing them. There is in space, people are quite important, right? And if you have a space habitat, and we're talking, if you have a habitat that's less than 10,000 people, you're going to notice someone's missing. You know, when a guard, gets stuffed into a closet, when people, when the player characters are disrupting, they're blasting doors and they're having firefights in hallways, and they're having run and gun chases in the smaller habitats. And I say smaller, like the size of a very large high school. There's no way they're going to keep these things hidden. And I don't mean hidden from stealth wise, but I mean hidden from the actions and their reactions, right? When someone doesn't show up for a shift, when certain electronic things aren't done, whether there's computer programming, analysis of sensors. A lot of these places are going to have 24-hour shifts, and people are going to have to take over their shifts for these 24-hour periods. And I say 24 hours, that time period could change, 27 hours. They could, in our own military, in the Navy does a strange, like, 12 or 16 hours on, something off. It doesn't operate in the same manner as 20. It uses a different variation of a 24-hour clock for work habits, and so that's going to be a very important thing too, as well as the fact that just bringing firearms onto any kind of sealed habitat itself is going to be problematic, because people are going to assume if you have a firearm that can pierce the hull, you're looking for danger. You're looking to cause trouble. And just having that item, even if you're not looking for trouble, what are the chances that someone looking to cause trouble has a tool that can cause irreparable harm? So, uh, Robo's like, well, there's probably a space janitor on board who won't be missed for a few days. Yeah, that's that one guy that, like, doesn't go to, like, the sonic shower as much as they should, and everyone's just like, oh, so and so didn't show up for work. Whatever. Good for him. I hope he slept in, because he's annoying. Oh man, yeah. There's that one person that's like, yeah, not only do we not miss you, we kind of don't want you here. Which does bring up another thing too. Uh, I wonder if you could. This has been used in different manners, but I'm going to bring this up holistically as a subject. We are now today going through the process of trying to find individuals who are going to travel to the moon, space station, Mars. They're astronauts, cosmonauts, whatever you want to call them, right? And Ramanauts, I guess, if they're from India. I don't know what India calls their space people. Ramanauts would sound really cool. I'd love to be a Ramanaut. But anyway, so different countries are sending people up into space, and they need to be vetted for their psychological issues. And one of the hazards traveling to Mars is the long distance in a very small container to land on a planet, to remain in that small space, and how they deal with each other. I wonder if you could gamify the building up of the psychological tension amongst people in a habitat, and the systems that are used to try to keep that in check when you have a higher population in a very small space, right? Like, holodecks would be really what would be needed. Virtual reality, um, putting people into stasis temporarily for months on end might alleviate some of the long travel. But as the habitats grow, let's say, like, I remember watching, I watched the entire Mars series on the History Channel. No, National Geographic. Um, or Nat Geo. It was a Nat Geo show about uh, Earth sending people to Mars and their trials and tribulations. And I wonder, Tesla says, I knew it wasn't the correct word, but Tesla says India has the via Vyomanauts. Oh, I'm sorry, Vyoman. Vyomanauts, coined from the Sanskrit word Vyoman, meaning sky or space, and I know I'm butchering the pronunciation, but it looks like Vyomanauts or Vyomanauts, Vyoma, whatever the case may be. That's kind of cool. I'm sure that I said Rama just because it's the first thing that popped into my head. I'm picturing like a symbol with like a multi-armed individual, and that'd be sweet. But yes, I'm sure every country has their. Wow, I just forgot Japan's space people. Mm, whatever the case may be, I suppose you could come up with different names for different colonists on different planets as their own naughts if you wanted to go with the naught um, thing, like a person from Mars leaving Mars to go someplace else would be some form of astronaut. Um, in Aries, knot doesn't sound right. Olympia knot? I don't know. I suppose that sounds like a little bit of a little bit of a of a path to go down. But also with when going into some other consequential things, and yes, yeah, Argonaut. Oh, ooh, I like that. Wow, yeah, that makes a lot. I like that, the Argonauts, because the Greek mythology and the Argonauts themselves were a band of individuals traveling around, like Hercules and Odysseus and Theseus and all of them. Yeah, or basically spaceship name Naut. Yeah, yeah. So if someone's name is Jones, they can be a Jonas Knot, or maybe their last name is Kelsinski, a Kelsinskanaut. Shorten their names down or something, or names of a mission, the Orionauts. Hmm, that'd be kind of. I mean, you don't have to. It's just it's whatever. You guys know me. I always like to squirrel a little bit. Um, Matter of fact, let me punch in a squirrel right here, just because I feel like it. Now, the 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 no. Anyway, we're getting to the end here. There are some. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Robo's like, no, I meant the name of the spaceship they're traveling on with naught at the end, just like the Argonauts. Oh, like the Argo. Yes, yes. I get it. Yes, the ship was the Argo. They were the Argonauts. So if your ship's name, whatever the name may be, you just add naught to it because the ship has the name, and you are the travelers of that ship. So then you would be, if you named your ship the Argo, everyone on that ship would become an Argonaut. Or if the name of your ship was the let's see, let's call it like uh mm, let's call it the Runner or something. You'd be a runnernaut, or the Voyevich, if the name of the ship was the Voyevich, then you'd be a Voyanaut or something like that. So yeah, I could see that. I actually, it would make a lot of sense, especially if you had a fleet of ships, you would know who belongs to what ship by their naught designation, and affecting the consequence of harming one member of a group of the Argos. Anyone who's been part of the Argo spacecraft, you make enemies with everyone who's a member of that craft, whether you like that person or not. Hey, that janitor that no one likes, if they were part of the Argo and they were assaulted on a space hab, and the PCs did it, that means every member that's an Argonaut would come hunting for them, or at least in their own way make life difficult for anyone that harms, you know, that individual. It's much like, hell, it's just much like family, right? There's people in your family, you're like, I don't like that person in my family, but let me say something against a member of your family, and you know, I'm getting rolled up in the corner, getting kicked in the stomach, right? Yep. Yep, for bonus points, name your ship the Dread. Oh, the Dread has entered into the system, and the Dreadnoughts have launched out, you know, coming into the atmosphere. Listen, if you name your ship Dread, you gotta spray paint a Predator skull on your outfit. You know, I mean not Predator, Punisher skull on your chest plate. That just, you know what I mean? You can't listen. No offense to the color pink and light blue, but you're definitely not using pastels on that ship. Someone in the crew's like raising their hand, like, "Can I repaint my room? I mean, I get the black gray, but I'm looking at something floral," and they're like, "No." Tesla Ranger says the Brazil. They're the Brazil knots. Brazil knots. Brazil knots. I like that. The Brazil knots. Oh man, you can have some fun with it, especially if someone's got like a really strange last name. Like you know, what's this? Yeah, yeah. No, you will paint it red and you'll like it. You get that one peaceful dreadnought soldier. He's like, yeah, listen, I like killing like everybody, but I don't know. I like to make patterns with my deaths and floral arrangements with the intestines of my enemies. Do you guys mind? And they're like, no, we're dark and goth. Squirrel! Joe, hey, what's going on, man? Joseph Keita always coming with the insights, man. Thank you for joining, dude. Squirrel. Yeah, it's just me being stupid, man. Squirrel. Yeah, we're always squirreling around here. He's like, the squirrel's got his mouth open, like, what did I just see? And why the hell am I here? Yeah. Anyway, guys, hey Joe, thanks for popping in, man. Like I said, emo Klingons. I love my Batlev, but I would really like to paint it with some like a sunset, maybe a waterfall on the edge. The person is dying on the ground, like, that would look beautiful. I don't mind killing you, but I just want this to have more emotional impact. Your death is all in my feels. Joseph's like, Star Trek had a few lasting consequences and will post. Why, thank you. Yeah, Joe's unable to participate in these live chats at all, so I'm really surprised you jumped in here, dude. But there's also other consequences long term. That is cool. Wow, a rainbow. That is literally a rainbow batliv. Batliv? That's cool, Robo. Thank you very much for putting that in there. It's like, yeah, not only will I kill you with something cute, it's also well painted and nice. Joe's like, I got a Klingon action figure on my desk at work. Yeah, Klingons. Now, just before we go, because we went over our hour mark, other consequences are, and I'm mixing this with my little third pillarisms, is you could set, one of the great things is we can set a time limit to get people to get their asses moving, like increasing radiation, radiation, asteroid field, not asteroids, I'm sorry, meteor strikes, exploding suns, stars, radiation waves, solar flares, gravity wells, other kinds of disruptions, so that your player characters can get the hell and move out of there, so that instead of just always running and gunning, it's not a matter of getting into a firefight, it's a matter of hurrying up and sealing up, say, an open radiation containment field, or um, getting in a firefight not be the smartest thing if a habitat or a spacecraft is falling into the orbit of a planet and getting ready to enter into going into re-entry and burning up on its way in. Getting into a firefight on a space elevator that's falling into the atmosphere, and there are only so many methods to save yourself, life support, aero braking suits, or whatever the case may be, that could push them. Now, I know that's a little more third pillarist than consequence, but the consequences of the PC's actions might set them up to something like that. So, for example, throwing a grenade down the hallway of a starship isn't the smartest thing, but if it causes explosive decompression, then the next step is not getting into a firefight, but not getting launched out into space without a way to, keep yourself sealed and or connected to the starship, unless you've got like magnetic boots or something, whatever the case might be. And what's more important, do I take my action to fire my blaster pistol, or do I grab onto a cable with my free hand so my ass doesn't get launched out into space, right? Joseph says, usually getting to work now, the warp speed ripping apart subspace. Ooh, yep. There's always the hazards of being exposed to wormhole, warp space, hyperspace travel, navigating around stellar objects is a thing as well. Romulan singularity cores, yep. Expanding that time limit to having a battlefield littered with poop ton of small black holes. Yeah. Yeah, if two people fighting on the bridge of a ship and knowing that ship has to be navigated might make those two individuals change their minds about, like, okay, you put your gun down, I'm going to put my gun down, you handle the sensors, I'll handle the piloting. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Yep, black hole vortexes falling into the event horizon of a black hole vortex is a thing. As a matter of fact, if we take, I'm not being sarcastic here. If we take real science, black holes not only draw things into it, but they also expel out matter as it gets ripped apart. So not only do you have the danger of falling into the black hole, you have the danger of being blasted by all the crap that's coming out of the not the corona, the wow, not the oscillating. It's the accretion disk around a black hole, whatever the case might be. But you get my point, right? And then, like you said, small black holes. From what I understand, there are we think of black holes being large enough to swallow like ships and planets. Wouldn't that be a white hole? I think there has been the idea of white holes existing as well, but it's the Hawking. Yep, Joseph Keenan says the Hawking radiation from a black hole is what's released from black holes. It doesn't get sucked into it, or rather, as matter gets ripped apart around that event horizon. Yeah, as matter gets, from scientifically speaking, as the reason you can see a black hole is because, and it's not just pitch black, is because as matter gets ripped apart, the energy released from the matter launches away from the black hole. Yeah, some of it gets sucked back into it, but there is energy getting released out of the black hole. Not out of it, but out of that event horizon. And I'm like, ooh, that's nasty. And as a matter of fact, the image of the black hole was put in Interstellar. There's actually energy around it, visible energy around black holes, which is kind of cool, kind of weird too, because I always imagine them being a black gap in space, but that's not the deal. And black holes come in all shapes and sizes. We normally think of black holes being able to suck in starships and planets, but there are black holes that are supposed to be as small as like a fist or something, which is the fear of creating a black hole on Earth, because I always get the idea that if you created a black hole on Earth, wouldn't it just fall into the core of the planet and then suck everything into it eventually? Kinda. Um, Isaac Arthur even talks about using black holes as engines, um, and sucking the energy from around a black hole to use it to power starships and stuff. Yeah, imagining ships circling the whole whirlpool vortex while fighting each other. Dude, that's exactly where my mind is going. Like it's which which there was a um Pirates of the Caribbean movie, World's End or something like that, where they're circling around the drain hole shooting at each other, and that's kind of what I'm picturing. Like was gravitate X-rays from iron tell the tale of swirling space-time. Yeah, I'm just picturing these starships. Yep. Dude, you and me, dude. You and me, right on that same path with ships just circling this black hole and like firing at each other, and time and space is kind of warped a little bit. So maybe it like things bend or move slower, kind of like I could imagine them firing at each other, but you could actually see the lasers launching through space. You could actually track it with your eye as they start going towards the other starship or something. And yeah, yeah, bendy lasers as yeah. Dude, that would be awesome. I don't know what it would look like, but since we don't know what it's going to look like, we can make it look like damn near anything we want until we figure out what the real science is. Yeah, that'd be so weird. And time would shift too. Ooh, the consequence of time dilation. That's another problem in itself. But anyway, we're hitting quarter past. I love shit. I could talk about this all week. Maybe one more time I will do a whole week of I'll do a whole week of science fiction as a theme, even with Dungeons and Dragons kind of pseudo fictional medieval as a backdrop. We can do something like that. A black hole week. Well, listen, I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom and evacuate my black hole. So please laugh at that. That's a complete joke, Joe. Thank you very much for popping in. Now I know you're usually getting off to work and stuff. Everybody have a great one. This weekend I will be uploading far more week-long episodes up to SoundCloud and stuff. So if people want to listen to the show maybe at like a 1.25, 1.5 speed, that might be better for them doing it over SoundCloud. You can actually do that on YouTube as well, which might be better for everyone involved, all of us involved. So anyway, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Want to stop this now. But anyway, my salutation. Your time is valuable. I'm glad you could spend it with me. I hope you're able to leave with a little bit of change. See ya. Bye.